Ladies and gentlemen, college basketball is upon us. And to talk it through in studio, one of the three-man Weave crew, the one who lives in Vegas, is Jim Root. How you doing, Jim?
I'm great. Happy to be here. Yeah, I don't know why the other two haven't made the trek to the desert, but I get to be the lucky one that's out here in person.
We sussed it out off air why they haven't made it. They have their reasons.
Yeah. I don't know if they're good reasons, but they exist, I guess.
Don't know if they're good. Yeah. And by the way, through the magic of Skype, we have the host of the Greg Peterson Experience, heard here on the network at VSiN. It's Greg Peterson. How you doing, Greg?
I am doing terrific, Gill. It is finally back. We've been prepping for this for 7 months, so it is a great day.
It is a great day. Lots of college basketball. And so the first of all, let me just start with what I find so amusing about the first day of college basketball is you'll go around and you'll ask experts like yourselves about college basketball, and I'll be like, hey, do you dive right in or do you wait a while? And a lot of people, like a high percentage of people go, yeah, I wait to see what's happening. It's just not going to be and then I'll be like, so you got some picks? And they're like, yeah, I have like 25 picks coming. Is that generally the case?
I'm not very patient. I like to think that our advantage is bigger early because of all the research we've done in the offseason. So I try to attack the board right away. I mean, I know Greg has his own unique spray the board approach. I wouldn't say I'm quite to that extent, but I definitely I try to get the bets in early and see where that goes from there.
Sprays the board.
Yeah.
Greg, you have no compunction starting from day one going crazy, huh?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of these cases in which I think that there's the most volatility when it comes to early on in the season, because if you are right with your evaluations, it is the best time to be able to profit off of it. If you are wrong, then you wind up taking your lumps early on in the season. I've had both happen to me in the last 4 years, but it's one of those things in which you trust your numbers, you go in with it, and you know what? If you wind up having some things not go your way the first few days, first few weeks, you make adjustments, you find a way to get to the window from there.
Okay, but I'm glad Greg brings this up because, and this has to do with, in case I don't know if you heard it or not.
Yep.
Oh, you did. Okay, because this applies to other sports too in handicapping. I have had baseball seasons, right, where, the priors were dead on, and then you have seasons where you're like, oh my God, I couldn't have been more wrong about so much of this. And so it is incumbent upon you as a handicapper of any sport to have the humility to accept that sooner than later.
Oh, yeah.
So how often has that happened to you? And when do you come to terms with something? When is a sample size enough?
The fun part is with 358 teams,
right.
I can be stubborn on a lot, and maybe they'll revert back to my expectations on a couple. But usually after a couple weeks, if there are very clear indicators that I'm wrong on a team, I'll shrug and say, you know what, I airballed this one. But the priors this year are so weird because last year's COVID season was so different. I mean, there's a couple conferences that barely got to play games. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, do I really take anything away from a Patriot team that played 9 games last year? Like that prior is almost thrown out the window. So trying to figure out how much to weight that, if at all, versus really just what I'm looking at with this season, what they have on the roster this year, that's been a tough balance this year just because last year was so different.
Transfer portal issues as well.
Oh, there's certainly plenty of those, but we like those. I like player movement.
Like that.
That's good.
So, okay, so the mainstream media headline coming into this season, again, we'll do this as a 101 for those who listen to the show who aren't necessarily college basketball people first or college basketball handicappers first, but the mainstream media headlines would be, all right, Kentucky coming off this aberrational, horrible season, Krzyzewski's last year as coach at Duke. Will that cause anything with officiating? Who knows? Seems to be the theme of the show today. And Hubert Davis, first year as head coach at the University of North Carolina, replacing Roy Williams. You seized on something, though, that I want to get at. So Baylor won the title last year, beating Gonzaga in the finals. What team or teams, we'll start with you, Jim, have the most significant group of returning players?
The mid-majors, I would say, to be honest. There's been a lot of transfer movement at the power conference level and even some at the mid-major level, but they also have the advantage of super seniors. At the power conference level, you see that with like Villanova and Colin Gillespie, Brad Davison at Wisconsin, but it's way more prevalent down at the mid-major level. I'm sure Greg will back me up on this. There's a lot of teams that bring back like 100% of their points.
Can you give me a name or names of a couple teams?
Southern Utah brings back a ton. Montana State, there's a couple Big Sky teams. A lot of teams in the Sun Belt. Georgia State's another one that just basically are kind of shrugging it last year and saying, let's run it back. Like I was a senior, but I barely got to play, or the schedule's interrupted. So there's a lot back at the mid-major level, and I'm curious if early on that tilts the scales towards the mid-majors and the dogs just because of that continuity.
Greg, what teams for you?
Yep, I'm right there with Jim. But you take a look at a couple of Atlantic 10 teams. How about St. Bonaventure and Richmond? They wind up bringing back darn near everyone. I think with Richmond, they wind up losing one guy from last year. But there's so many of these mid-major teams that they are bringing back darn near everyone. And it's because of that extra COVID year that a lot of these guys that they were seniors last year, they were a little bit disgruntled. They wound up having their 2020 season taken away with the NCAA tournament, and they decided, you know what? We weren't able to make the NCAA tournament last year. Last year was a wonky year. I'm going to come back rather than winding up going to like the G League, rather than going to oversee something like this. And we've got to keep in mind, a lot of these guys wound up coming back because of name, image, likeness as well, because they're still able to make a little bit of money rather than deciding to go pro, having no idea what the heck is going to be going on. You still get your room and board. So that had a little bit of an impact as well.
Greg Peterson, host of the Greg Peterson Experience here at VSiN. Greatest name for any show here on the network. Greg, what did you in our college basketball betting guide? I don't want to give away everything, but as much as you want to tell here, what did you end up betting futures wise?
I didn't wind up taking any futures. I am going game by game.
Really?
So it's one of these things which I don't need to give away anything because I'm just going to be looking at everything from the first game that we're going to be going with Alcorn State versus Washington State. And the big reason why is because when it comes to the NCAA tournament, it's all about matchups. And when you wind up getting these matchups as well, you can do something in the NCAA tournament. I am a big believer of this when it comes to baseball as well. If you want to do this with the Atlanta Braves, you want to make it a bunch of money rather than taking them pre-flop. And that's what's called a rolling parlay or the rollover approach, in which you wind up just putting down one money line unit on a team that you think is going to win the NCAA tournament. Say it's Gonzaga, say it's Duke, Kentucky, list goes on and on. You bet them on the money line. First game of the NCAA tournament, they advance. You wind up taking that one unit plus your winnings, and you just keep rolling it over and rolling it over because you never know what you're going to get when it comes to the futures market. Wrong guy winds up getting hurt. You're able to walk away from the table with your winnings. You're not locked in on that futures bet where you need to wind up having to hedge a bunch of times to try to be able to break even. You don't wind up having a case like Auburn bettors wound up having a few years ago where Chuma Okeke winds up getting hurt and you're stuck with that ticket. So I'm someone that I didn't mind firing on any futures. I'm just going to be going at this game by game.
Jim, same question. Doesn't have to be for the whole deal, but also conferences, nothing for you?
Oh,
futures?
I have too many, I would say.
Provide.
Conferences, I have just too large of a list,
okay.
even. Some of the ones over at stations and even a couple out-of-state places. I just thought there was really good value, especially in the ones that got put out there early. I don't think totally factored in all the super seniors, especially in the mid-major leagues. So a couple of the bigger ones, I have Wagner, big. I have Belmont, Iona. I just think those are, whether they're the favorite or not, there's pretty solid value in some of those mid-majors. National title futures, I have a few as well that I hit right after the national championship last year. A little bit speculative. Some worked out, some did not. But I definitely hit the market a little more than Greg did.
So Wagner, Belmont, what was the third in conference?
Iona in the Metro Atlantic.
Metro Atlantic, okay. What were some of the ones to win it all?
A couple of the good ones that worked out well, Gonzaga 10-1 right off the bat, and Texas 50-1. Both of those have very positive value now.
Yeah.
But I also took Alabama 25-1 there. I think 30, 35-1 in places. And another one, Virginia Tech, I took early, and they ended up losing Tyrese Radford, and so that value got worse. So it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but I'm relatively happy with where I ended up on the portfolio.
How much of the Texas 50-1 was all Chris Beard?
Oh, 100%. They didn't have any of the transfers yet. I was just like, Chris Beard with those resources,
yes,
he should never be 50-1. I don't think we'll ever see Texas 50-1 again with Chris Beard in charge.
So we don't see any of the ones you picked here on this screen here. Let's go back to the other one if we could here. Just want to see what their current prices are here, courtesy of BetMGM. There is Texas at 14-1. Would you bet it at 14-1 or not so much?
I'd probably leave it alone at 14. Yeah. There's still some questions about the way that team is going to come together because there are so many disparate pieces, but it's very talented.
What about Bama at 20-1?
I'd probably leave that one too. They get some injury concerns in the preseason. They lost Amari Burnett to a torn ACL. So I just want to wait and see a little bit on them.
Jim Root from Man Weave is with us at 3MW_CBB.
Nailed it.
Oh, nailed it. So you can find his work, Matty Cox, and, of course, Kai as well. What's Kai's? McKeon. Is that his last name? Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Jim Root, Matt Cox, Kai McKeon. 3-man weave. For those of us who played basketball at different levels, the 3-man weave, one of the strangest drills you'll ever participate in your life.
Not really useful in a game.
Don't really think. I was like, hey, let's run the weave. It doesn't really apply. Somehow they thought it did back in the day. Greg Peterson, host of the Greg Peterson Experience, also with us via Skype. Let's just review real quick, Jim, because you gave us a bunch of futures plays, and people are going to wonder. So the 3 conference futures you did Wagner in the Northeast at 50-1. That is no longer available.
It is not.
Not even close.
3-1, probably still decent-ish. I mean, they're a toss-up between them and Bryant.
Who put up a 50-1?
Can I say it? It was on Barstool.
Oh,
drove over to Arizona, got it in.
I asked. Belmont plus 175 in the Ohio Valley. Is that around there now?
I think Jeff was saying it was at plus 125 or so now. I still think they're going to win
still
that
bettable.
League, so I would still take it.
And Iona, you got at minus 125 in the Metro Atlantic. That is also right around there, yes?
Believe so. Yeah, I think right around there, and I just don't think there's a lot of competition for them in that conference.
Okay, and then the futures plays to win it all. Again, none of these numbers exactly where they are now. Gonzaga 10-1, Texas 50-1, Bama 35-1, and Vatech at 70-1. But here is the thing with college basketball that I want to point out. We always say, baseball's a great example. You won't get the Dodgers at the best price before the season, but if they happen to have a swoon, let's just say at the beginning of the season, then you can jump in and get a much better price. There is no extra points for doing it before the season starts. It sounds great to people, right? It sounds super sexy. Wow, we called it in, whenever, in March in baseball. But in college basketball, I think it's the sport that goes the deepest into the season where you can still get the best numbers on teams. Like in February, you can grab teams that are super live for the tournament at like 75-1 still.
Oh, yeah, everybody's watching football still. Once the Super Bowl wraps up, maybe they'll start sharpening up those futures. But, books aren't that worried about it unless you're hitting the number really hard.
So just keep that in mind. If you're like, what good is it that he has numbers we can't get now? Just wait. They'll come back. They will. Okay, so tonight, just so many games. The headline is the Champions Classic games, which I feel like we do these 2 matchups every year, but that's just me. It's Kentucky Duke, and it is Michigan State and Kansas. Do you have a play on either of those 2 games?
I'll be honest, I don't. I'm going to have to defer to Greg there. I wanted to. I want to have something going in one of those big ones, but I got to stick to the numbers that I have, and I'm sitting them out.
I like what you do. Greg, do you have anything on either of these?
Absolutely. We're seeing Kansas right around a 4.5-point favorite, which means we're taking the points with Michigan State. I was willing to take anything above a 3 in this spot because with Kansas, keep in mind, Jalen Wilson, top rebounder from last year, was able to put up 12 points per game. He is out due to a DUI suspension, so he's not going to be playing in this game. Kansas is also dealing with Jalen Coleman. Lands at his 55th year of eligibility. He's been a little bit banged up as well. I like the way that Max Christie is going to be coming into this Michigan State offense. I think another year under the system is going to be good for Joey Hauser, and we have seen a massive nosedive with this total. I'm seeing some now 140s on this total. I like that over. I was willing to take anything in the lower 140s, so even a 139.5 at Circa. So we are seeing this all over the place. I like this over, and I like the points here with Michigan State.
All right. Anything with the Duke and Kentucky game? Why I even bother asking if you have anything with it, Greg? I don't know. But what is your play on Duke Kentucky?
We actually wrote this up for the New York Post. I'm taking Kentucky on the money line. There are a lot of people that are overreacting to the fact that they wound up going up against D2 Miles College, and they wound up going 15 of 13 from three-point range for a D2 school. It was absolutely incredible. So while everyone else is just freaking out about it, I take a look at Kentucky. They're bringing Oscar Tshiebwe. I think that he's going to be able to dominate down low. I recognize that Mark Williams is coming back for Duke. For Mark Williams, final 10 games of the season, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks per game. But you take a look at this Kentucky bunch, and I think that it's absolutely intriguing that you finally have experience coming back. They bring back their top scorer for the first time in over a decade. That would actually be Davion Mintz, and I think that he's going to have a nice part with this offense as well. Ty Washington, Severe Wheeler, they're going to do a good job of running the backcourt. And for Duke, they've always had a little bit of a deficiency when it comes to three-point shooting. I think that Kentucky's size is going to cause for some problems. So I'm going to be taking Kentucky on the money line, and this is a total that I think it's a little bit too high. I would prefer it more in the mid-140s, so wound up taking it under as well.
Parlay, you have a play.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Greg on that. I like Kentucky as well. Both of these teams were bad last year, especially by their standards. And I'm really concerned. I don't want to play a psychologist so early in the year, but I'm very curious to see how the Duke team handles it being Krzyzewski's last season. I don't think they're going to handle it well early in the year, especially against good competition. I like Kentucky. I'm with Greg. I already bet them outright.
Okay. Jim, what you got?
That 3 is starting to look interesting to me. So I may or may not end up adding the Wildcats. So where that line has moved to, taking the +3. So
okay.
I'm nothing official there, but I'm starting to look at it.
What would be official, sir?
Official today, I'm starting off. I'm sure this is going to warm Greg's heart too. St. Thomas -6. We're fading Chicago State to start the year.
Yes.
Oh, man.
St. Thomas coming up from Division III. A team has not made that transition in quite a long time, but they're really well coached. They run a lot of complicated action offensively. That's not good for Chicago State. A team that hired a coach late in the offseason, probably not going to be ready for that kind of sophistication offensively.
Chicago State sticking with the D1 status, huh? They are.
Temporarily. We'll see.
By the way, you bring up D3. Shout out Yeshiva. Going to be great this year, D3.
Get your D3 futures in.
For a certain portion of the audience. All right, okay. St. Thomas?
I also have Cincinnati, -11.5 over Evansville. I just think Cincinnati got really underrated last year after their coach was fired for being abusive, and the team did not respond well to that. So I think they're a little undervalued. That's been bet way up. I think it opened around 8, but I still like it. And then last, I have UC. Well, not last. I have 2 more.
Okay.
UC Irvine, +6. This one opened a little lower, so I'm coming in against the market here. But I just think them and New Mexico State are both the favorites in their league. 6 points is a little bit too many. Irvine, a great defensive team. I think they'll keep New Mexico State under wraps. And last, a fun one. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the extra board. So
right,
we're going to the extra board. Yeah, for a total, UMBC and UMass over 149. I believe is the most recent number I saw. This is going to be a shootout. I don't think the number has totally encapsulated UMBC getting the new coach, bringing in Jim Ferry. And then UMass just loves to run. They're all guards. I think this is going to be a mega shootout.
All right, so St. Thomas, Cincinnati, UC Irvine, and then the over, extra, it's going extra, on the UMBC, Maryland-Baltimore County, UMass over 149.
You can tell I'm rusty because I didn't come with the rotation numbers ready.
Yeah, see, that's we have to remember that for college basketball season. Yep. This is now people are going to spend the next 30 minutes trying to find these games. We'll do rotations next time.
I'll be better.
Come on, man. I forgot, too. That's been the biggest complaint about this segment. Greg, what's your favorite bet on the board?
Well, hey, if you want me to help you out for that UMass game, that is game number 301-020. It looks like 301-027, 307-028-ish. So you're looking at the middle of the extra board there, but we're looking at 301-029, 301-030 as you've got Oregon versus Texas Southern. Texas Southern is catching 20.5 points. Keep in mind, Texas Southern, when Bowl was at Oregon, they actually wound up going to Eugene. They won this game outright. They do wind up losing their top scorer in Michael Weathers, but I think that they've got a chance to be a very live dog here. 20.5 points. That is just a couple too many. I'm in lockstep with Jim Root. Hashtag Operation Fade Chicago State. We are going to be laying the 6 here with St. Thomas. Began more around the 5 mark, and I'm seeing this pop to 6.5. Still like it at 6.5. If you wind up getting a 7, still like it at 7. So we are certainly all aboard that.
All right. Jeff Parlay, you will have all these on the newsletter, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna add one in as well.
Okay.
The number kind of got away, but I still like it. I like Pitt laying 10.5 today against the Citadel. Citadel plays absolutely no defense. Should be a good spot for Cable to get his team ready to go with a high-scoring win and covering 10.5 at home against Citadel today.
All right. For those who are questioning, again, if you missed the tennis pick, Xinyu Wang this morning might have started already. I have to check. If it hasn't, it's north of a $2 dog against our girl, Emma Raducanu. Sorry, Emma. We apologize. We still love you. Jim, let's do this often. The 3-Man Weave crew. Let's do it weekly.
Yeah, got it started first day of the season. Keep it going.
You're welcome in the studio anytime you want, by the way. Anytime. Thank you, Greg. Greg Peterson, host of the Greg Peterson Experience. Thank you, sir. Jeff Parlay.
Thank you
as well. Jim Root at 3MW_CBB. That's still the best place to find you guys?
Absolutely.
Rather than go through the individual one?
Yeah, that's the best.
All right. Jeff will have it in the newsletter in case you missed any of those picks. Enjoy.